On today's episode, hadn't you heard of House of Rowan, a boudoir photography studio in Merchantville, also known as Monsterville, which you'll remember from my earlier episode with Ten Bredden. But today, we're here with Adrienne Rowan, the owner of House of Rowan. Let's get to know a little more about her and her boudoir photography studio today. Thanks for joining me today, Adrienne.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you swinging by. Let's give the listeners a little behind the scenes, 30 seconds or less, about House of Rowan Photography. What do you guys represent?
So I'm a boudoir photographer, but for me, boudoir is not just about, pretty photos. It's about empowering women. It's about showing them that they can be sexual and embrace their sexuality, because that is a part of life. I like to empower women to be like, I can do whatever I want. It doesn't matter what my gender it is. It doesn't matter what my race, nationality, etc. I can do something because I want to, and do it as long as it's safe, sane, legal, consensual, of course. I like to empower women to know that they can just do whatever they want.
That's awesome. You have a very safe space for women to feel beautiful, sexy, and you've created this photography studio now. How long have you been in business?
I have been in business, I want to say, since 2017 or 18. I don't quite remember. I moved back from England. I lived in England for a year, and I always get fuzzy on if it was 2016 or 17.
What drew you into the photography business? How did photography start for you? And then what kind of made you divert and pivot into boudoir photography?
That's a winding path. That's going to go all over the place. How long do you have? So originally, when I was in high school, I wanted to work for Playboy because I thought that the female form was art. I thought it was just the most beautiful thing. I saw it in a lot of art classes I took. I saw it in a lot of art museums and all different types of art. And I was like, oh, I love the nude female form. I think it's just beautiful. But I thought the only way I could make a living doing that was to work for Playboy, which at the time was a very male gaze situation. So I was just like, all right, maybe that's just not something I can pursue. But I always wanted to be a photographer. I took a lot of classes in high school and college. And then I worked for Dover Air Force Base photographing dignified transfers, which is when the fallen soldiers come back from overseas. And it was one of the most honorable jobs I've had. I was very honored to have it. I think it's one of the most important photography jobs in the military because it is the last memory we can give to that family for that person's sacrifice. So I was very honored to have it, but it was very emotional. It was very sad to see all of these fallen soldiers coming back, but that was one of my first professional photography. I was also in the Air National Guard in New Jersey as a photographer. I worked in public affairs up in at McGuire. And then after that, I went to the Pentagon and I ran the photography studio for the Marine Corps there. And I worked there, a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. And I would take photos of the Marine Corps mascot, Chesty Puller, which if you're a Marine, that is the pinnacle of, of Marine legend. But I also took photos for the Secretary of the Navy, Congressmen, Senate, the Marine Corps parades and things like that. Then I went to England to pursue my master's degree in photography. I lived there for a year. And then came back, and I luckily had a very supportive grandfather. He passed earlier this year, but he was always like, do what you love, and the money will come. Don't worry about it. Do what you love, and if you love doing it every day. So when I came back, he had always been saying, "Why don't you start your own business? Why don't you start your own business?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know if I can." I was just worried. So when I came back from England, I was like, I think this is the direction I want to go. I feel like I have the technical background from working in the military because they're very stringent on what kind of editing you can do. And they teach you how to use your camera, to the nth degree. They're very in-depth. So I'm very much rambling.
No, this is the point. I want the listeners to understand where you started, because you started this business with a dream. You had a vision, and you this is how it always goes. You wind your
all
way.
over.
You have to cover all the bases, and then you end up at the goal. And it really teaches you how to be the best photographer and be the best photographer for your clients.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes your clients now, the women, super comfortable, super excited to work with you because you are the subject matter expert. You had to go through the normal headshot work, and you did a lot of very great work with those people. And, it's very important. And, it kind of creates the person you are today.
Yeah. So like I said, I came back and I felt like I had the technical background to really do that. I felt like my grandfather was an accountant, so he taught me a lot about how to manage finances and things like that, and how to advertise and how to allocate money to use for advertising. So I was like, all right, I think I can do it. Just with any business, it's going to be a little difficult when you first start. And sometimes you think like, oh, I'm just going to announce I opened my business and everyone's going to come. And I learned very quickly, it's a lot more work than that. And as I was continuing to work with my business, I was like, you know what? Met a couple other boudoir photographers from all over the world. There weren't that, I don't think there were any in New Jersey at the time that I started. I mean, I may be wrong there. I think there might have been one in like North Jersey, further north, but like I was one of the only ones in this area. And I think there might have been like one in Philly, but that was it. So I met people like in Canada from all over.
Oh, wow.
When I say all over, I mean like the whole world.
Yeah.
But it was still a small group of people. But I was like, this is what you do all the time. This is what I wanted to do in high school.
Yeah.
Because it was more female gaze. It was about empowering it. The nude female form is beautiful and it is art and it is empowering. And I was seeing it in a different way where it wasn't like this over sexualized version that was meant for the misogynistic view, where it was like that's my body, that's my power. And I love my body, the size it is, the shape it is. I want to appreciate it. And I'm very much about like empowering women to accept themselves the way they are. I don't Photoshop them. I don't elongate necks. I don't trim fat. I don't want to do anything like that because there's nothing wrong with being fat. There's nothing wrong with your neck being the length that it is. There's nothing wrong with your skin looking like it is. I want them to see their photos and be like, ooh, like that's a realistic version of myself.
That's me.
I kind of went a different direction.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
But so I saw that there were other people at other places that were doing it. And I was like, this is what I've always wanted to do since I was in high school. I'm going to just focus on just one genre because I was doing families, I was doing newborn, and I was, but that was like for the first year of my business, I was kind of like, I could do everything. And then I was like, but this is a lot. And I really want to focus on what I wanted to do. And when I saw that it was possible from other people who were doing it in other parts of the world, I was like, all right, I'm going to see if I can do what I love. And as I said, my grandfather always like supported me and was like, do what you love. So I started just to focus on boudoir and it worked out. And I'm doing what I love and I love it. And I'm just like, yes, like I'm empowering women every day to be like, yes, this is me. I'm freaking awesome.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on rocking and rolling through this whole, journey to make it here today. So you're proud to have this business. Now, when you jumped into specifically the boudoir section of photography and you met all these other people across the world, what was like the defining thing that, clicked for you that you were like, yeah, you know what? These people are doing it. The conversations I'm having with these people, like, they're successful and I can do it too. What was kind of like the clicking moment where you're like, I'm just going to go for it?
So I went to a photography workshop in Canada and there were probably about 100 or 200 boudoir photographers there. And that's what they did. But they were in all stages of novice to having done this for years and years. So I met all these people and it just opened my mind or my eyes to like, wow, okay, you can just do one genre and be niche and really cater to that thing if that's what you love doing, if that's what you enjoy doing. And I saw people that did all different types of photography. Some were light and airy, some were dark and moody. I've always been a dark and moody person because it uses both light and shadow. And I feel like it manipulates the both better and just creates these very Renaissance type paintings where it's just, I don't know, they look like butter. Like you're like, ooh, the shadow just accentuates and ooh, like if it's just too much of one thing, there's no balance. I feel like it's the eye is like, I'm bored. What do I look at? But when you're like, ooh, the shadow, ooh, it's like a mystery and levels of a photo. So I really like honed how to work with light and shadow. I think it was like 5 classes during the workshop, which I think that was more than most people are doing. I was pretty exhausted because it was only like a 4-day workshop. And I was like, I'm going to cram as many classes in as I can. I want to absorb everything. So like I said, I met all these different people who were in different stages of their business. I took all different types of classes, some for just photography, some about running your business, some about doing all, and I just learned so much. They had a Facebook group that I was in for about a year or two before I went to the workshop in Canada. And I was just absorbing information. I love to go into groups to learn things. I just read things and I pull information in. I'm like, oh, that seems like a good idea. I'll write it down. I have like a running notes in my phone of like plopped ideas. And sometimes like writing it out makes me go, that might not work for me. Or like, oh, okay, maybe I'll implement that later. So just being around all these people that I was like, this is really like something that I can do and really work on this one niche, this one area that I love. And I saw other people, I was like, so it can work. I can put food on the table. Because that's ultimately, as business owners, that's what we worry about the most is like, if we niche down or if we're so specialized, are we still going to be able to put food on the table? I want to be an artist, but you're always worried about the starving artist cliche, which it is a thing to worry about. But you're like, am I still going to be able to pay my bills and put food on the table if I go down to such a small niche? But I guess I want to say to other people who run business, the more you niche, the more specialized you are, the more professional you are, the better you are at your craft. Niche can be good. Niche most of the time is good, especially in the arts. Niche because you really hone down, you really practice it. And it's like anybody with art. Everybody says, oh, I can't draw. It's not that you can't draw, you haven't practiced. If you practice and keep drawing over and over and over and hours, like some of the best artists in the world, they practice their craft for so long. It's more about practice and perfecting, because perfection not totally attainable, but practice and perfecting over just like trying to do everything.
Right.
If you want to do one thing and make that the thing that you're great at, I mean, I'm good at a lot of other things too, because I just kind of have a neurodivergent personality and I have ADHD. So I'm like, oh, what can I learn today? But so like I said, it was when I went to this workshop in Canada and like it took me a year to, like I had started doing boudoir as being part of the group, but it took me a year to like go to the workshop. And then when I saw the other people, I was like, you know what? I love doing families, photographing families because I love working with kids. I have a child myself, kids are super fun and great to work with, but it wasn't my passion. I took great photos of them, but it wasn't my passion. Working with women and being like, you are powerful and talking about equality and trying to strive for equality was important for me.
Yeah. And I can tell just by, your explanation of everything of how you got to the boudoir photography scene, I can tell your passion and that, and you came up with your ideal photography image through it. Talking about the shadows and how you make the women feel powerful, beautiful within their own bodies. I think that's truly important to talk about because everybody's different, but everybody's awesome. And you're doing something incredible, allowing these people to feel amazing on a daily basis when they work with you in a photography scene. And it's difficult. My favorite thing when I do portrait work is have somebody come in super nervous and then leave super excited that they got their headshot. Nobody likes getting their headshot. So it's always the fun aspect of the roller coaster ride to the end of the session.
Yeah.
And you're doing something incredible and allowing these women to feel amazing about themselves because they all deserve it. How would you say your favorite thing at the end of a session is? Like, what do you like to see? And what kind of like fills you with joy at the end of the day after having somebody come in for a photography session?
There's so many parts that are my favorite. And I know that I might sound like, I don't know, cliche sounding that, but there are so many parts saying it. You were saying that in portraits, people are nervous when they come in and then they're excited. I think that happens with every kind of photography because a lot of people are like, I don't know what to do in front of the camera. What do I do with my face? I swear that's the thing people ask me the most is what do I do with my face? And I'm like, don't worry, I've got you. I love seeing the way, because I have everyone come in first for hair and makeup so they get to like an hour to just relax. And we just do hair and makeup for the pamper factor and do accentuate what's already existing. We don't do like a huge glamour makeover where you don't recognize yourself at the end. Like I want my clients to look at their photos and be like, oh, that's me? Oh my God. I don't want them to be like, who is that? I've never seen that person before, which again goes back to why I don't use Photoshop. I don't want them to see a body that's unattainable. I want them to be like, girl, that's me. And if they're having a bad day, they whip open their album. They're like, that's me. But there's so many parts that's my favorite. Like when their nerves calm down once they start the session after hair and makeup. When I first show them the back of camera, which the back of camera, it's like a nice preview, but it never does justice to the photo during their reveal session because I have my clients come back a week or two later to look at their photos after, and we put them up on the big TV. But the back of camera, when they see and they're like, I can do this, and their nerves just melt away. Like I try to tell all of my clients, you're not going to be nervous within like 2 minutes of being in the studio. And they're like, no, I will. I'm so worried. Like I'm worried about showing too much skin, or I'm worried like about hanging out in my underwear. And I'm like, I promise everything, all I see is shapes and colors. I just look at the way the light's hitting everything. Don't worry about anything. And it is every single client within like 1 to 2 minutes. They're like, why was I nervous? And they say that at the end. So I love seeing my clients come to that, like, why was I nervous? I love my body, and they get comfortable with their body. And then my other favorite part, which isn't during the session at all, is when they come in for their reveal and they're like, that's me. Cause I have them on the TV when they walk in the boutique, and they never realize it's them. They always think it's some kind of screensaver of like my other clients. And then when they sit down and I'm like, all right, are you ready to look at your photos? And I'm like, here's your first one. And it's the image on the TV. And they're like, wait, that's me? I'm like, yes, that is you. And they're like, oh my God, I didn't even realize, because they don't see themselves from another perspective.
Right.
And I tell a lot of my clients, like, we look in the mirror all day, every day, and we see the same, the same angle. I'm using my hands to talk and nobody can see what I'm trying to explain. But we look at ourselves from the same way every day. Yeah. And I'm like, let me show you what other people see. Let me show you from an outside perspective so we can have a new appreciation. So you can see yourself in a new light.
I think that's incredible. Everybody gets stuck in that rut. They see themselves in the mirror and they don't realize that the other way people see them is beautiful, amazing.
And it's not about other people's opinions of the way they look, but it's seeing from another perspective. That's what's the important part to me, is like, let me just take you so that you can see from like a third party view and look at yourself and be like, dang.
Golly. Well, we've talked about, Adrienne, the exciting stuff a lot, what you're giving back to these women. It's so powerful.
It's what they're giving themselves, though.
Yes.
They're investing in themselves, having a session. They're taking the time to be like, this is my body and I want to appreciate it. Yes, I'm taking the photos and they hire me to do it, but I like to look at it as more as they're giving it to themselves. Yeah. They're giving themselves a chance to be like, all right, I want to like my body. And I tell all of my clients, I practice body acceptance, not body positivity, because body positivity can be very constricting. It's like no tattoos, no dyeing your hair, no anything, no changing of your body. It's also a movement that was started by Black women, so I try not to co-opt. So I go towards body acceptance, where I'm like, every day it's a step towards accepting. And I tell them when they see their photos, even if we just take a baby step towards and maybe it's not your favorite photo, because maybe you see a role and you're not ready to see that, but I want you to see it to know that like, that is my body. So maybe we can take a baby step towards going to full love is very difficult. It takes 7 positive things to cancel out 1 negative thing. So if we take a baby step towards it's a step. We're going forward. Yeah. So if it's not your favorite, just say not a favorite. We go to the next photo. And I just want you to see that it's worthy of being photographed. And I want you to be like, that is my body. Yeah. I'm going to appreciate my body. If you don't want to put it in the album, that's fine. But I want you to see and be like, someone thought it was worthy. I should think it's worthy if we're working on that self-love situation.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this then. When a client comes to you, and even when you started the business, what are some of the hurdles that you're coming across opening the boudoir studio and having a client come in a little timid and getting, just an open sense of, we can make this the way that makes you feel awesome?
Every client I have comes in for an in-person consultation before they even have their boudoir session. It's usually a month to 2 months, sometimes longer, because I'm pretty booked out, so that we can sit down and talk about what they're expecting from their session, what the timeline looks like, what they should expect from their session, what's going to happen. We talk, and I try to make sure that every client knows that consent and boundaries are my utmost priority. So I explain to them what happens during a boudoir session, that I do adjust hair, and I tell them during the consultation and during their session, if touching bothers you or if adjusting hair, just let me know right away. I always ask first so that they're prepared. And if they're like, oh, I don't want someone to do this, you can tell me during the consultation. So that usually helps people prepare, and that tells me what their vision for the session is. We talk about what to wear so they can tell me what kind of vibe they're going for. I guess that's the best way to say it. I don't know why I had to say vibe like that. Vibe.
You gave off the vibe.
I did. I was like, vibe. But I can get their feedback. I can see what their vision is. We can talk about what their session is. And I tell them all the time, I said, you are the boss during the session. you hired me to do this and I'm taking amazing photos for you, but you're the boss. You are always in control and always advocate for yourself. I can't feel what you're feeling. So if a position doesn't work for you, let me know. Advocate for yourself. So I think that's part of a session too, is that we have this consultation to kind of prepare and let them know, like, this is about empowering you. This is about you advocating for yourself. This is about you being like, I am Jane whomever, and I'm going to say no, and no is allowed. And I tell them too, I'm like, no is an acceptable word in the studio during the consultation at any time. Saying you don't like something is an acceptable thing. I think that sometimes in society, women are taught to be quiet, or when they're put on the spot, we have to say yes for things. And I tell all of my clients, I'm like, if you don't want to do something, you say no. If you don't want to, if a pose doesn't work for you, I don't often have clients saying no for things, but I just try to set up that boundary and consent before a thing so that they know, like, I can say whatever I want. I'm in charge. This is my session. And I tell them, I'm like, yes, I run the business. Yes, I'm the photographer. I'm the owner, whatever, but I'm not in charge of you. You're in charge of me.
Yeah.
I do what you want. So I think did that answer the question?
Yeah, no, that was a great explanation. And I think that's a really genuine way of putting it.
I lost the question.
No, I think it's a really genuine way of putting it for your clients, that like, it's their session. They're the boss of the show. This is like, they're running it.
Yeah.
You're just a facilitator of their expression.
And I will give them artistic guidance. I will give them suggestions on what to wear, but it is important for me to let every client know that this is your session. You know, I want you to know that you're in charge. And I feel like that in itself can be empowering. Even before we start doing photos, they're like, it's mine. I'm like, yes, it is yours. So it's very important for me to just like give my clients a voice throughout the whole process and give them the ability to give me feedback, I have a lot of forms that I have my clients fill out, and I have guides and prep guides and things like that, so that they're always informed on what's coming up. And they're like, oh, I've got that prep guide I can read. Oh, I have this information guide I can read. Oh, I have this confidence maintenance after my session guide, because I try to make sure that boudoir is not like a one-night stand. I make my clients breakfast in the morning. I'm just kidding. But I want it to be a long-lasting thing, not just a day of the session. I want them to be able to look at their album when they're having a bad day and be like, there she is. I'm going to conquer today. Or if they're like, have a big meeting presentation, maybe wear that lingerie you wore for your boudoir session underneath of it. No one knows it. It's like a superhero effect. You have that on, so it's kind of like your armor, and you're like, I'm going to conquer this today. And no one knows it, but you're like, there she is. Yeah. She's inside of me. And there's all these ways I try to have my clients like bring their mind back, because the mind is powerful. When you have ways like smell, touch, visual, or wearing something, it can bring the mind back to that feeling. And sometimes just having that feeling, you're like, no, I remember that. I'm a bad bee. I can do it.
So Adrienne, we're talking about your clients a lot, but how would you describe your ideal client when they walk in? Who are you looking for to come through those doors?
I don't know that I want to say I have an ideal client, because and I know I talk a lot about women, but I do work with a couple of trans clients as well. But I don't know that I have an ideal client, because I want to work with anybody that is trying to build their self-esteem or is trying to give themselves a boost, who's trying to treat themselves and have just like a pamper day. I let a lot of my clients know, I'm like, we block out the whole day to have your session, because I want you to know, like, basically you're taking vacation from life for a day. This is just about you. So don't plan on being anywhere else. Come in, get your hair and makeup done for the pampering, and just be like, like I can relax. I don't have to make a decision today. Even my whole process, it's about, I send you all the guides. Literally the only thing you have to think about is, what am I going to wear? You just have to show up for your appointment. And what am I going to buy to wear for your session? I'm like, let me handle everything else for you. It's very concierge. So it is clients from all walks of life. But there's so many reasons that people do boudoir sessions. So like I said, I don't think there's an ideal client, because I have clients that just are like, oh, I'm celebrating my birthday. Oh, I'm celebrating leaving a bad situation or a bad relationship. I'm just trying to regain my power. There's all different levels of reasons why people do things. like do a boudoir session. So that I don't know that there's an ideal. It's anybody who wants to have a boudoir session for whatever reason. So
Yeah.
like I said, it can be something like birthday, fun, loving, and exciting. It can be something life-changing, leaving a bad relationship. It can be like, my body changed after having a baby and I'm not ready to, which I relate to a lot. I had a baby 2 years ago. My body changed. I don't know how to look at it. I don't know how to feel sexy. I know that my body has changed and it's not something I'm comfortable with. So some of my clients will do a boudoir session to reconnect with their body and be like, all right, although my body has changed, I can see what it's done for me. I can see that it carries me through each day. It had a baby and I can see it in a new light to reconnect and be like, okay, like I said earlier, baby step to like. So you can appreciate your body and then every day move towards self-love.
Yeah.
So there's so many different ways. And sometimes people are like, I'm doing it for a wedding, which that's another life change too. So they want it, or they do it for an anniversary where they do it for their partner. And I don't want to say it's funny, but a lot of my clients who come in and they're like, oh, I'm doing it for Valentine's Day for my partner or this and that. They say that when they come in. And then when they see the photos, they're like, oh, this was for me. I'm like, yes, it was for you. Because I try to tell all my clients, I'm like, the best reason to do a boudoir session is for yourself.
Yeah.
So it's basically, I guess my ideal client is somebody who wants to do something for themselves.
There it is.
That's it.
There it is.
And then my clients who are like, oh, I'm coming to do it for a partner. I'm like, oh, no, that's great. I love that. In the back of my mind, I'm like, girl, wait till you see the photos. You'll know it was for you. And literally every client who has done it for their partner, they're like, this was really for me. I don't think I'm going to give the album to her, him, they, them, whomever. And I'm like, yes,
That's
I love
awesome.
it. Yeah. So there's so many reasons.
That's incredible. What kind of exciting things do you have coming up within the business that you're pretty excited to, share with your upcoming clients? Is there anything marketing-wise coming up that you're excited about? Any kind of specials happening? I know you're pretty booked a little bit.
I am currently booked until April of 2023, which is like 6 months away.
Mm-hmm.
I do often book up pretty quick. I usually do a Black Friday sale, which I'm not sure if I'm doing this year because I am so booked up. But if I do, it will be to my email list. Like I said, I don't know if I'm doing any specials this year.
Okay. Well, what's the best way for your ideal clients to kind of reach out to you, see what's going on, see when it might be the right time to reach out to you? Instagram, what social medias are the best for them?
Instagram is usually the best. That is where I tend to be a little more like real. Like when I post stories and things, I like to post funny, like off the wall stuff and empowering things, but also lots of random funny stuff. And randomly my child too, because we do a lot of events in town and I do like to promote the town I live in, Merchantville, because I love it. I moved there. I love my town. So when we go to events like the haunted house that the 8th graders do every year, I'll post pictures from that. Or if we visit local stores in town, like we live right across the street from the station, I like to post photos when we visit there. But Instagram, which is at House of Rowan Boutique, like I said, I'm a little more active on Instagram. I do have a VIP group on Facebook, which is NJPA Delaware Women's Empowerment Group, and it's for women and trans women, which we talk about a little bit deeper things, and it's a safe space where nobody's allowed to take screenshots or anything like that. We do share more photos in there because I have some clients that will let me just share in the VIP group, but not on any other social media. And that's another important thing with boudoir photography, random side, is you always ask them what they're comfortable sharing, and you make sure that you're only sharing their sensitive photos where they're comfortable. But yeah, Instagram, the VIP group, I have Facebook too. It's all House of Rowan, or it has boutique on the end because I think somebody else had House of Rowan by itself. So if you look at some iteration of the version of House of Rowan or House of Rowan Boutique, and then my website, which is AROWAN photo.com. That's a lot of different ways to reach me. But if you go to my website, you can sign up for the mailing list. You can find the links to my Instagram. You can find the links to my VIP group and all of that if you want to be on the email list, which I usually only email like once a month. So don't feel like you're going to be like, oh crap, she's going to email me like 700 times because I'm telling you, the spam
Yeah,
and emails right now
there's a lot.
is out of control. So I do try to be sparing with the emails. It's only like usually once a month, unless I do drop something like Black Friday, and I will do like maybe 2 or 3 in 1 week and then wait till the next month. And then that's it. But I try not to be too overwhelming with emails. So Instagram, Facebook, and my website.
So plenty of avenues to reach
There's
out.
so
to
many
Adrienne.
ways, but
women, trans women, you can reach out anytime. She's available.
Instagram's probably the.
So Adrienne, for me as an artist, I have pump up music. I listen to the same artist all the time. I will reveal that artist when I am interviewed on this show.
Okay.
But you have to have pump up music on a daily basis. But I also wanted to ask, what's the pump up music you tell the women, the trans women coming in for a session to listen to? Do you give any kind of like insight to them? Be like, hey, listen to some cool stuff before you come in to get hype. And what gets you hype?
So during sessions, I do have a playlist that I've made on Spotify of a lot of different music, which it's good for me to photograph, but I feel like it also makes women like in the mode of, but it's usually by female artists and it's powerful songs, things that have a good beat. Or things that just sound like sexual seductive where you're like, ooh, listen to the riff on that song. And it makes you like want to kind of languish and move your body in ways. So I do have a playlist. It's probably like a 6-hour playlist by now. I don't know. Because I'm always adding things when I hear songs. I'm like, ooh, that would work well. Ooh, that would work well. It's a lot of like Beyonce, Lady Gaga. I do have that Michael Bublé song, Feeling Good, because that riff in the beginning, it's oh. So I feel like it just lends to the movements during a boudoir session. Yeah. I think you've got to set the tone. I don't have like random, just I guess jarring. I wouldn't do like heavy metal or like screamo or anything like that. Unless a client specifically was like, this is the music that like makes me feel powerful. I wouldn't play something like that because a lot of people might be a little jarring, or it might be a little too fast paced for them, where it's just like, okay, this is really fast. And I'm trying to just languish when I do these poses. I love the word languish. It just feels so, But so, yeah, I like I said, I have a playlist. It's just a lot of like, I'm seductive or powerful, etc. type. Yeah. It has a vibe, I guess. R&B.
We're just looking for vibes.
We're looking for a vibe more than a pump up. I don't know that I have a pump up song. I listen to, and this sounds so weird, and I listened to this all throughout COVID too. And it's because of Skin Integrity Spa in Haddonfield. Yeah. She plays a lot of bossa nova during her facials. And while I was getting a facial once, I was like, what is this music? And I didn't know. And I know I listen to all kinds of music. So I usually know every genre. And I was like, what is that? Like, I was like, what is this exactly called? And she was like, oh, I can send you a playlist. And it just puts me in like this mellow mood of like, like I feel like I'm the French Riviera, like just relaxing by the beach. And I listened to it a lot during COVID because it was a very stressful time. And it's one of the things that got me through COVID. And now when I'm just like working in the kitchen or editing or doing this, I just throw the bossa nova on in the background because it's just like a light, happy, keeps me in a mood. But it's nothing where like my brain latches on as like, oh, we got to sing to this, or oh, we got to dance to this. It's just this nice calming. Yeah. I don't know if calming is the right word. It's just, I don't know. It's like drinking a cup of hot cocoa and it's just there. And I'm like, I can just do the work I need to get done. And like, it's not too fast. It's just the right tempo. I don't know that I hype myself up too much. I'm more try to keep myself in this neutral, supportive area. So I think that, and I usually play a lot of bossa nova during hair and makeup too. Because I'm like, I totally stole this from Skin Integrity, but it just put me in such a good headspace where I was like, it's just like, I'm happy, but I'm relaxed. And it was perfect. And I even messaged her and told her, I was like, I'm telling you, the bossa nova got me through COVID because it's just there. It's
good life background music.
It is. Yeah. It's nice. And it's just enough. And then you don't always know what the lyrics are. So you're just kind of bopping to the music.
So Adrienne, before we wrap it up, I just want to ask one final question.
Okay.
It's kind of twofold. What makes you at the House of Rowan different than other boudoir studios? And what would you kind of say is the House of Rowan's kind of philosophy when working with clients and existing in the community space?
I mean, A lot of boudoir photographers, what makes them different is who runs their business. So it's always who the photographer is. I am my own person. I have my own personality. So I think that's one of the things that makes me stand out as different. I also do have a Victorian studio. The house is a Victorian, 1888 Queen Anne Victorian. So the studio has all these details of Victorians. My studio, I tell all of my clients that the colors I use work very well so that whatever they wear, it will go with the studio and it will always keep them as the center of attention. So I always tell my clients, I want them to be the center of attention. That's what's most important to me. My studio is beautiful, lovely, and I want them to feel like, oh, even just being in this studio is like luxurious and it feels like a space where it's elevated. But when I want them to look at their photos, I want the eye to go directly to them and be like, oh, look at me, I'm amazing. And then maybe start to filter out to what the background is to be like, oh, look at all those plants, or oh, look at the detail in that corbel or whatever it is in the studio. But I want everything in the studio to be supporting, not competing. So I do have a Victorian studio that makes you feel like, oh, I feel fancy for a day. I feel extra. I feel like Moira from Schitt's Creek. Like we all want to be like that. She's just phenomenal. But I want you to feel like, oh, like it's an elevated experience between the pampering of the hair and makeup and the studio and the vibe of it. But what makes me stand out is just me. It's me, my personality. Like I'm different from other photographers. I'm not going to sit here and be competitive over whose work is better or this and that, because I think everybody should really just put blinders on, like do your own thing, be the best person you can, and do the best work that you can and create the best experience. So I think everyone has a different experience. Everyone has a different photography style. The thing that makes everyone stands out is the experience they create. And I just try to create this safe experience where people feel extra for a day.
All right, Adrienne, before we really wrap it up this time, what would you like the listeners to leave with today to kind of remember House of Rowan and Adrienne Rowan?
So one of the biggest things that I follow in life is to try and leave this world a little better than you found it. I think it was Robert Baden-Powell that said that. I try to live every day to just try to make the world around me a little bit of a better place, whether it's being part of the community, helping with community events, helping other people, talking to other people. If people are like, oh, I have an idea and I need someone to bounce it off, I love to like help other people. So I'm always like, how can I leave the world better than what I found it? How can I leave people's lives better than what I found it? How can I impact people in a positive way? So I think that's what's important, is always think about how you're affecting other people, not in a, oh, I have to worry about everyone's opinions type of way, but how can I like improve the world around me and make it a better place?
That's awesome, Adrienne. Leaving just a positive ripple in the world to create more positivity in the world. I think that's a genuine way to exist, and I think everybody can relate with that a little bit. Thank you for joining us on today's episode with our special guest, Adrienne Rowan of House of Rowan Boudoir Photography Studio in Merchantville. Please reach out and connect anytime for your boudoir photography needs. And catch us again next time for another special guest, so stay tuned to Haddon You Heard.